Hey, what's up, guys? So, in this week's episode of 5 Minute Fridays, I want to talk about a comment that I see surprisingly often online where people will say something along the lines of how radar detectors are completely useless because there's situations where, it may not give you any sort of advanced warning. And typically it has to do with instant on. The idea is if an officer is up the street ahead of you and he's not transmitting his radar gun, if he's waiting until he sees you and he sees somebody that he wants to clock, and only then he pushes the button on his radar gun to start transmitting, it's true that in that situation, your radar detector is not going to alert to his radar gun until he's transmitting, but at that point, he already has your speed locked in, and so the radar detector didn't help you avoid the ticket. And that's totally true. That is a situation where a radar detector is not going to help you avoid a ticket, and that's definitely good to know as far as having realistic expectations about the capabilities and the limitations of a radar detector. Now, anyone who's run a radar detector for a period of time and has experienced it saving them repeatedly knows that in practice, yeah, they are very helpful. That's not to say they're infallible, however, and yes, it is possible to still get a ticket even when running one. Now, just because that's the case, does that mean that radar detectors are completely useless? That's kind of taking one case and trying to apply that to all situations, which is not really a good thing to do. For example, if we say a seatbelt in a car, you can put on your seatbelt when you're driving. Does that guarantee that in case you get into an accident, you're not going to get hurt? No, of course not. Does it guarantee that you're not going to get killed in case of an accident? No. But does that mean that you should just not wear a seatbelt? Of course not. It's definitely going to help improve the odds so that in case you do get into an accident, you're ultimately going to wind up much better off than if you weren't wearing a seatbelt, right? Same thing with hand soap. You know how sometimes on hand soap they have a sticker that says this kills 99.9% of bacteria. Oh darn, it doesn't kill 100% of bacteria. Should I stop washing my hands completely? No, again, of course not. It's not 100% effective, but it's definitely much better than never washing your hands ever, right? And it's kind of the same thing with radar detectors, and so it's definitely good to have realistic expectations and an understanding of the capabilities and the limitations of your radar detector. So let's talk about this situation a little bit more. It's actually kind of an extension of the very first episode of 5 Minute Fridays we did, where we talked about why radar detectors may not alert when you pass a police officer. And again, it has to do with the same thing where if he doesn't have a radar gun in his car or he's not transmitting, your radar detector is not going to alert because, well, there's no radar to alert to. And this is kind of an extension of that. Now, let me actually show you a situation where somebody got a ticket from a radar gun from Instant On. The officer was actually using this gun right here. It's a custom Falcon HR. By design, all handheld radar guns are pretty much instant on. You don't just leave them on your dash running continuously. You just kind of sit and wait till you see a car, pull the trigger, and it's got the speed. Now, here's a setup with an officer who's kind of hiding behind the trees and shooting instant on. You can see the Valentine 1's concealed display on my dash, and when she's transmitting, it's lighting up front antenna to let me know the officer ahead of me is transmitting radar. Now, she's clocking cars as they're coming towards her, and then it's not until there's this red car a couple cars back that's speeding that she notices on our radar gun, and she's ready to give that car a ticket. So she pulls out after the car, and she gives the car a ticket. Now, this was a situation where there was instant on, where the officer was not transmitting radar. She was waiting until there was traffic coming, again, to not give any of these cars any advanced warning, and then only when the cars were coming did she pull out a radar gun and start shooting radar. But if that red car had a radar detector, they would have seen that there's radar being used up ahead, and before it was close enough to be clocked, and kind of the next one in line to be clocked, it would have actually had enough advanced warning to slow down and avoid the ticket. Now, this, of course, is not every situation. If there's no traffic up ahead, they're not going to get that advanced warning. And so that's definitely something important to keep in mind, is that this relies on cars up ahead of you to draw fire before you're the one who's being clocked, right? So, you're going to want to make sure you use your tools wisely and keep in mind, can you see an officer up ahead? Maybe or maybe not. They may be hiding, Do you have cars up ahead of you to draw fire? Do you have a sensitive radar detector that's able to pick it up at a distance? In the open desert, you could get 5-10 miles of advanced warning, but in urban situations, or if there's any mountains or trees, that kind of stuff, that can block the radar signal, and maybe you'll be lucky to get half a mile of warning, So you definitely want to consider the terrain and traffic and different factors, but ultimately, yes, there are situations where a radar detector will not help you avoid a ticket, but even understanding that, you can kind of work around it and recognize there's times when you're more vulnerable, there's times when you can use use your surroundings to your advantage and help you work around some of the limitations of your radar detector. And so we can't really say, oh, a radar detector is totally useless, because there's situations where they can be defeated. It's more about kind of understanding how to use your tools wisely. So anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to cover for this episode of 5 Minute Fridays. So make sure you understand your tools, how to use them properly, and what their limitations are. Other than that, let me know what questions you guys have for additional episodes of 5 Minute Fridays, and I may cover them in an upcoming episode. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for the questions. Hope you guys have found this helpful, and I'll see you guys next week.